genetics that I have are contributed from, as I substantiated with these slides. So how the hell is my patrilineage then European? What did you see some silly fool have on his PTR on Clubhouse aside?
The nigga had, it was you in the background was the French flag.
Number one, the amount of time that it took for you to do that, the fact that you sat up and created that to forward a narrative, I mean, man, that says a lot about you as a person.
Or their maternal heritage. After me and my brother-in-law had tested at 23andMe, we found out that we were part of the same haplogroup, R1B1B2A1A, I think. Yay! We're practically related! Or are we really? Well, before we get into that, let's hear about our sponsor. Family Roots Conference is at the end of September in St. George, Utah. This conference has over 80 classes, entertainment for the whole family, and lots of the speakers that you enjoy. So if you want to learn more about your family history, go to the website we list in the description below and register for the Family Roots Conference and stop by and say hi to us. And now back to haplogroups. R1B1B2A1A is not uncommon in Europe. In fact, most Europeans are one of the R1B haplogroups. So even though my ancestry is primarily from England and my brother-in-law's ancestry is primarily from Germany, it's entirely likely that we are from the same haplogroup. However, because Y DNA is passed down essentially unchanged for several generations, our nearest common ancestor could be hundreds or even thousands of years removed from where we are today. And that's not the kind of thing that we ever hope to find a paper trail for. In 2016, 23andMe updated their website and their algorithms, and as part of this, they also changed the naming convention that they use for haplogroups to what is more commonly used throughout the genealogy and the genetics community. I became haplogroup R-P311, and my brother-in-law became haplogroup R-L51. Now, if we take a quick look at the haplogroup tree right here, we see that R-P311 is actually a descendant of R-L51. So if anything, now I'm even more distantly related from my brother-in-law than I was before. After several other male relatives of my family had tested, I had built a little bit of a curious tree, and you can see it now. I am the darker green slash tealish almost color, and that is haplogroup R-P311. You can see that my three brothers are all R-P311 as well, and my three sons are R-P311. My brother-in-law is R-L51, and where it gets interesting is my dad and my grandfather are both R-L51. What could be going on? First off, one might guess that maybe me and my brothers are all adopted. However, our autosomal DNA matches both my father and my mother's DNA. So we're not adopted. We're actually all descended from my mother and father. Second, maybe me and my brothers are the first in the R-P311 haplogroup. We're the founders of it. Except that's not how haplogroups usually work. Because haplogroups are formed with a new mutation, it's usually just one person that is the founder of that. And there's the pesky fact that R-P311 is documented by hundreds, if not thousands of people throughout the world already. So there's no way that we are the founders of that. So there must be some other explanation. To get to the bottom of this, we actually need to look at what tests we took and what they were looking at in those tests. Now, all of us tested at 23andMe. However, 23andMe has changed their chip over the years, and so each of the tests was not the same test. Starting with me, I tested with the version 3 chip. My grandfather, my father, and my brother-in-law all tested with the version 4 chip. My brothers and my kids all tested with the version 5 chip. So right off the bat, you can see the version 3 and the version 5 chip were all calling the same haplogroup, whereas the version 4 chip was calling a different haplogroup. Now, haplogroups are determined by these SNPs, And so we need to take a look at the SNPs that were tested in each one of these tests to see which one would be the most accurate. Now, first off, from this table right here, you can see that version 3 actually has the least amount of SNPs tested, especially when you consider all of the no calls. Version 4 has about 150 more SNPs than version 3, but the best case is actually version 5, which has almost 3 times as many SNPs as version 3 and more than twice as many SNPs as version 4. So based on this information alone, I would actually assume that version 5 is going to be the most accurate just because it has more SNPs. But haplogroups are really dependent on individual SNPs. And so the most important thing is not the number of SNPs, but the actual SNP that defines that haplogroup. For R-P311, there is a mutation from A to G at RS9785659. You don't have to remember that. Now, searching through the raw data on my version 3 file, I found that SNP is present, and it was called as that mutation. And so that's why it identified me as R-P311. Looking through the version 5 raw data for my brothers and my sons, that SNP is also present, and it does show that mutation. But when I look at the version 4 file for my brother-in-law and my dad and my grandfather, that SNP was not one of the SNPs that was tested. And so it defaults back to the parent SNP, which is the haplogroup that they are called out, R-L51. Based on that, I would expect if my father tested with 23andMe version 5, he would show up as haplogroup R-P311, the same as me, my brothers, and my sons. But the question then is, what about my brother-in-law? Well, since I don't have any information about his father or his son, we can only guess. And the only way to know for sure whether we actually share a haplogroup or whether we're different haplogroups is to have him tested again or to have his son tested. And now another word from our sponsor. We're excited to be attending the Family Roots Conference.
But it has to be France now, right? And it just is a demonstration to the level of ignorance that you guys have on the topic of DNA. Totally ignorant, right? Next slide. So this is the map of R. This is R1b. I'm going to show you R1a in a minute. So here we see R in Africa. We see R in Europe. We see R in Asia. We see R in the Middle East. So now I'm to believe that I can take a tube of spit from you this big and trace you back to one of these people here. Right? I want everybody to understand that. This Garfield talked about something called wacky beliefs. He says the Hebrew Israelites have wacky or weird beliefs. I think it's weird to believe that a little bit of my spit can track me back 20,000 years to somebody. I think that's insane. Literally. When the DNA test itself just couldn't get past the 1700s, I just showed y'all, right? That is insane. But here we are looking at, this is R1b. So we see that it exists all throughout Africa, Central Africa, into West Africa, East Africa, North Africa. We see it in Europe. We see it in Asia. They're in the Middle East. They're in India. They're into Kazakhstan that stands up there and things of that. We see it all over the place. Why is it that you hear R and you assume white when all these other non-white areas are R? Is it because you're a white supremacist? Or is it because you just are trying to make me out to be a white man? Is it because you're trying to push a narrative? Is it because you're so full of envy and hate that you feel like making a rumor up like that would be damning, so you just did it because you were moved out of envy and hate? That's why the Bible says, spread not a false report. Don't talebear. With no proof, with no knowledge, which clade of army, because he's European. You see that? That's the hate. It's a ball. We all have a little bit of everything in us. So now it doesn't even matter. We all have it's so crazy. And the people, if you're a Hebrew Israelite that is trying to forward this, on one hand, I can't see it. One hand, I can see it because we are emphatic on the emphasis on patrilineage. Very much so, right? But if you're not a Hebrew Israelite, why does it matter? Why would it possibly matter? Because we're all the same, and this genetic root really isn't what matters to anybody else who's outside of being a Hebrew Israelite, right? Next slide. See that exactly, and he's just supposed to believe that though, right? So here we have R1A. This is in Europe. This is in Asia. See how deep it is in India? It's also in parts of Northern Africa and all throughout the Middle East. So this is R. R is in all these non-white regions. It's in white regions, right? R1B and R1A, both sides of it. It's in white regions, but it's also in all these non-white regions. Why is it that y'all assumed and put me in the box of the white one, right? Now watch this. Y'all see Israel, the landmass of Israel is covered in R, right? R1A. Let's go back. It's also covered in R1B. So now if I'm R, why couldn't we say, oh, this proves Gorilla Hebrew is an Israelite? Because R is present on both sides of R are present in Israel. See that? But no, he's a white man. See, it's agenda-based. Again, big up to Brother Garfield, because again, he called me and he said, hey, look, I don't want to be the source of why these guys are trying to drag you and call you a white man. That's not what I meant to do. And I know it's not what he meant to do. He's never said anything I've seen us be on live and dudes going, man, Gorilla Hebrew is great. And he go, Gorilla Hebrew is my brother, period. Right? So I ain't mad at Garfield whatsoever. I just want to make sure that's clear. Right? But as we can see here, R is all over the place. Right? But they got to make it European. They got to make it European because they are on a mission to slander and contradiction of the laws of God, right? So let's go. Next slide. Next slide again, right? So now watch this. Haplogroup R M173 appears to be the most frequent haplogroup in Fulani. And haplogroup R P25 has the highest frequency in Hausa. Who are the Hausa people? Oh, they're in Nigeria. Interesting. And COPS and is present at lower frequencies in North, East, and Western. What country, Assad? Sudan. And haplogroup R P25 has the highest frequency in Hausa. Who are the Hausa people? Oh, they're in Nigeria. Interesting. And COPS and is present at lower frequencies in North, East, and Western. What country, Assad? Sudan. Wait, and then the oldest part of Sudan. So that's here. This is on the record, but no, he's European. But here, this same DNA that I have, or the same haplogroup that I have, is present amongst Fulani people in Africa, Hausa people in Africa, and Sudanese people in Africa. No, white man. But again, we just examined the DNA. The oldest part of my DNA, Sudan, matches up with that. The white contribution to my DNA is all coming from women. That's been proven, right? Next slide. This is Fulani, for those of y'all know, this Fulani people, right? Those people have R2, right? They don't exclusively have R, but it's frequent amongst them. The R haplogroup. Are they European? Are those white people? Somebody let me know. Did Fulani get put in slavery? Sent over here on cargo slave ships? Yes, some of them did. Let's keep going. Next slide. Although many Y chromosomes belonging to haplogroup R1b are quite rare in Africa, being found mainly in Asia and Europe, a group of chromosomes within the paragroup RP25 are found concentrated in the central western part of the African continent, central western, where it can be detected at frequencies as high as 90